Hello, I'm Sharon Johnson.
And I'm Susan+lambert+hatem. Welcome to 80s TV Ladies Special Summer Reruns. Sharon, we're supposed to be on vacation right now. Aren't you in Hawaii or Europe or somewhere?
Oh, not yet, but I am actually out of town visiting my mom.
That's so cool. I'm going to be heading to Atlanta to see friends and family. And then the summer is going to be over very soon, and we'll be getting our teenager ready for his senior year of high school. Hey, what a crazy, nutty, insane few weeks it's been. Once again, the world has turned upside down and changed 3 times, but this latest change has made me very, very hopeful and excited.
Me too. Kamala Harris is running for president of the United States. Let's make it happen. We are not going back. If you're so inclined, and we hope you are, you can join the Kamala Harris campaign at kamalaharris.com.
It's amazing. $200 million in like a week and 170,000 signing up to volunteer for the campaign. People on Zooms, and it's been pretty incredible. Thank you to President Biden for being a spectacular president and once again being the true statesman we need in this time of chaos, who put the good of the country over himself.
What an incredible man and president, and his decades of public service are unmatched. We've been so lucky to have him in the White House.
And I'm very excited for him to finish out this term strongly.
Absolutely.
Regardless of that, we thought it might be fun to remind you of what it was like back in the summer of 80s television by giving you some reruns of our favorite episodes.
And just like the networks 40 years ago, we'll be back in September with brand new episodes. I have to say, covering Cagney and Lacey was a real dream, and we got to talk to the trifecta of creator Barney+rosenzweig, star Sharon+gless, and star Tyne Daly, who created the role of police detective Mary Beth Lacey. We reran the Sharon+gless interview in May during Podcast Move and Evolutions, and y'all loved it. The Tyne Daly episode was truly a special interview for us, as we got to interview her in our studio in person.
We're so thrilled to be able to rerun it for you today. Please enjoy this conversation with the incredible actress, activist, human, and the inspiration for us, Miss Tyne Daly.
Have a great summer.
Hello, and welcome to 80s TV Ladies. I'm Susan+lambert+hatem.
And I'm Sharon Johnson.
We hope you are hanging in there and finding joy. We are super thrilled to be looking at Cagney and Lacey.
We have such a very special guest today who is here in our recording studio right now.
And by our recording studio, we mean my garage office.
That's correct. Cagney and Lacey was a groundbreaking 80s show starring Sharon+gless and Tyne Daly that won 14 Emmys.
This detective drama ran from 1982 to 1988 on CBS and examines both the cases and personal lives of 2 female police officers in New York City. It also spawned several TV movies. Let's get started.
So to that end, our very special guest today is Tyne Daly. She is a stage and screen actress and a multi-Emmy winner. She won a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical playing Mama Rose in Gypsy on Broadway. She has been inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame.
She may be best known for her role as Mary Beth Lacey in television's Cagney and Lacey. She also starred as Amy's mom, Maxine, in 6 seasons of Judging Amy and has done multiple television appearances, stage productions, and movies. From the 1976 third Dirty Harry movie, The Enforcer, where she played a female cop, to Spider-Man: Homecoming. She's also an activist and co-hosted A Night with Sharon+gless at a reading of the play Row by Lisa Loomer that was at the Fountain Theater here in Los Angeles.
Tyne Daly has won 6 Emmys, 4 for Cagney and Lacey, playing Lacey, of course, 1 for Christie, the 1-season period drama, and 1 for Judging Amy.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Tyne Daly.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to have this discussion with you.
I'm very excited for joining because I have a very difficult time in the 21st century. with everything being filmed and everything being sent through the air and everything being electronic. When you get old, which I hope you do, because it's a really interesting time of life, but when you get old, there'll be a whole lot of stuff to adjust to that you will not have seen before. I promise you.
I'm already finding that things that are happening where I just find myself going, I don't understand the need for this, or why we should be pushed to that, or what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And why is anybody interested, kind of thing.
Well, I think I began to tell you, I'm asking people to give me one word on the 21st century so far. We're not a quarter of a century, old century yet. Mm-hmm. We're moving in on it though. But a little assessment about if you had to find a descriptive, if you were a poet, for instance, a thing to say this century, you get one word. It's very tricky.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh,
well, you don't have to answer immediately.
Thank goodness.
However, perhaps at the end of our time, you could give me, because if you'd like to know mine now, I'll tell it to you.
Yes.
Or I could wait.
Let's wait.
Compare. Should we wait?
At the end.
Let's wait.
Okay.
So where are we now?
Okay. Well, I do want to talk about the beginning of your career first, if we can.
Sure.
You come from an acting family.
I went in the family business. On base, it was the only way to get their attention. There was a theater, a local theater, the Antrim Players, from the place we moved after. Well, there was a lot of schools before that. We moved around a lot. When we settled down in Suffern, New York, there was the Antrim Players, which just closed their doors forever, which makes me very sad.
Oh my goodness!
They're going to turn into a church. Oh dear. And but they had a program for kids and for grown-ups, and I got to escape there and do my apprenticeship, and then played there a little bit. Then the parents, they were parents. They wanted me to go to college. they wanted me to finish high school. I mean, they pinched me so hard, because by the time I got to the Antrim Players, I wanted to do it all. So I did. I finished high school barely, on the good graces of a history teacher who said basically, "Oh, get out of here," with your D-. I went to Brandeis University for a quick year because there was a man from American history of the theater named Jasper Dieter.
Jasper
Dieter, either a ball player or theater, right? One or the other. Jasper Dieter, and. Then he was gone after my freshman year as a teacher, although I learned a great deal from him. He was one of my lucky teachers. And then I found out they weren't going to let me on the stage until I was a junior.
Really?
So the hell you say. So I went home to the parents and said, I quit college, send me to trade school. Went to trade school, met my husband, got married, got pregnant, came out here. I had done a couple of plays in New York, quickly, and a couple of seasons of summer stock. And I got out here and called in all of the connections that I had, and none of them paid off.
What was the impetus for?
Because you wanted to work in movies and television. Is that what was it? Or did you want
I wanted to follow my young husband and for us to raise up our baby together. Yes. And I didn't want to leave New York at all.
Okay.
This was foreign territory, and in many ways still is. Because this is a movie. This is the movies. New York is the theater. There's the movies on those terrible, dichotomies that we are forced to do. But I tried to find theater out here. I did do some theater out here, but I felt that I was leaving the theater town forever, and I was in mourning for that, because that was what I had fantasized about. Broadway, how great you are. Not the silver screen. That was for ideals in that day and age. It was only for ideal people.
Oh, okay.
And they cried ideally, and they suffered ideally, and they made love with a certain amount of cool, not hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coolness was the big. I wasn't any of those things, and I wasn't going to be. But the luck of timing, which they don't talk to you about in acting school, was that we hit the Dustin Hoffman. We hit the real people time. You could look like a person. You didn't have to wear your bra. We hit a wave, as did my young husband, who hit the wave of the inclusion of Black people for the first time in a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the luck was those cultural timings, both for the women's movement and for the social revolution of race. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, we were very lucky. And then we did the work, and then I was middle-aged. I was 34 years old. I was done. Come on. Who's that? Wonderful. Who directed Some Like It Hot?
Oh, Billy Wilder. Yeah.
Billy Wilder famously said, "There's only one thing for a woman to do in Hollywood after 30, and that's leave town." And he was one of the nice ones. They were exploiting little girls from 12, like the Gish sisters, all the way up. But nobody wanted to take a look at anything that wasn't smooth and white and feminine. Let me put some quotation marks around that. No threat to the patriarchal feminine ideal. And the ugly people were allowed. The non-perfect people were kind of in fashion. So I was just definitely not perfect. I feel like in the movies, I couldn't pass the physical. Movies like the Marines.
Yeah.
In terms of your assignment, you know, there's a requirement for a certain kind of strict adhering to the rules. And I was really much more interested in being a MASH unit. You know what I mean?
Just
they were
get in, get out.
Help people, patch them up because they've been hurt. Oh.
When you first came to LA, though, did you find much to your liking of the theater community here, or was it fairly non-existent at that time?
We made a couple of theaters. We made a wonderful little theater in the Valley that was this little space. We did some very esoteric plays. We did Baal. and it was fun because we turned it into a sweet little theater. This is when there was under 100 and then under, and you could still get a dispensation from your union. Some of us were union women, workers, and some were, milkmen. At any rate, when we lost that theater after 2 seasons, we had to turn it back into a storefront. It was heartbreaking. It was this sweet little theater with its things and the little box office and all this stuff.
Do you remember the name of it?
No, it was on Moore Park. Who was in it, interestingly, was David, what's his name? Starsky. They used to call it Cagney Lacey. Goes to say, which are you? And I'd say Starsky. Starsky. And David, jeepers, it'll come to me. This is why I can't.
David Soul.
David
I'm going to help you out with the internet and technology.
Thank you very much. Okay. That's cheating, though. That's the death of conversation, that machine. Because people don't, what's his name, who's in that movie with, she was married to, that fellow who did the thing that he was doing. He worked for, at that studio. You know what?
At the place behind the car.
We're finished. Yeah,
we never get to have this
about this, my contemporaries and I. You've got another 10 years. You've got another 9.
9?
Years before your brain leaves.
No. It's already leaving the station. It's on its way. Trust me.
Oh, ladies. So we were speaking of culture.
Yes.
Being lucky. What happened before that? So I did 10 years here of freelancing on television and getting jobs through my connections and through having, delivered on those connections, but getting the job is hard. My dad had a show. My husband had a show.
Your husband was in The Rookies, right?
He was in The Rookies. We were talking about Aaron Spelling too. In those paternal, producers who could announce at the end of their season there would be another season. Everybody has a job. Go on vacation, go on hiatus, and have a good time. So them days are over. I had done a couple of pilots for various proposed series and gone home and fallen on my knees and prayed to my maker not to have it sell. Please don't make me have to do that for another 15 minutes, much less, 5 years. I got lucky in the movies a couple of times, but that didn't pan out to be anything. In terms of work, I was approached by my agent with a script called Cagney Lacey, and I said, I did my cop with Eastwood.
The Enforcer.
That's over, And he said, read it, and I read it, and I thought, there's room in here for something else besides run and gun. And and the other thing was that by that time I was a little bit smart about the business. I thought every single actress in this town is going to throw a blonde wig on her head and want to play Cagney. Because Cagney's glamorous and Cagney's funny and Cagney is sharp in a very specifically second wave feminist way.
Yes.
Which shelf life, I'm not so sure. But anyway, so I actually thought Mary Beth was more interesting, had more possibilities in terms of a long run thing. And then we did it, and then it wasn't appreciated. Well, it got good numbers with Loretta. Got very good numbers because Loretta was hotter than a pistol playing Hot Lips Houlihan. Right. And so it was her they owed her a movie of the week like they did to sweeten contracts then. It got sensational numbers. It got 60-something. It doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Yeah. But there wasn't an inkling in doing the TV movie that there might be a series in this?
Not to me. I thought it was a one-off.
Okay.
So we had no contract for it. So then there's this network who lives and dies on math, which is the difference actually between the theater and the movies. The theater is words, and the movies is numbers. So, just by the way. So they got impressed and they went to Barney and they said, "Where's our series?" Maybe he told you this story.
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't have Daly, I don't have Swit. What do I do now?" They said, "Well, Swit's tied up in her series doing the 11th year, I believe, of MASH."
Yes.
They said, "Get Daly," So we came to a deal and started looking for a new Cagney. And then they told me the long history of who they'd wanted in the first place and blah, blah. That's 11 times told tale.
But so then you did the first season with Meg+foster
Yes.
as Cagney.
Yeah.
And this was your second run as Lacey. What changed for you for that character between the movie and the show, and then with the different Cagneys?
I'd been playing with the big boys, and I'd had to make compromises, personal ones, about loyalties and about advancing my own career, and about it was a very tough time because Meg and I had worked well together, and we had done what television series don't spring full blown from the mind of Zeus.
Right.
There's an idea, you do it, and then, as Amy Brennan once said to me famously, she called me up after we were picked up for judging him, and she said, "I know what it is now, Tyno. We have to keep doing these." I said, "Yeah, baby. We do at least 12. It's a whole different animal. So I thought we were done, and we weren't done. And I was for about a minute and a half, or a week and a half, in on the casting process of the new Cagney, and I was still aching from Meg and I, because I thought we'd sort of started to figure it out.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any start to figure it out. There was deliver, you know? So, after that, sitting with listening to these people audition these actresses, all of whom I admired. I mean, any of the smart ones said, "Oh, that's a good part. I'd like to have that part. We don't see those parts very much in TV, And they all came in and they read. And after the first day and a half of my reading with them, I said, "Fellas, I can't stay in this room with you when these actresses leave. I cannot listen to you speak about these women and these workers. I will go down and get them from the waiting tank, and I'll bring them down to you, and we'll read together, and then I'm leaving." Because I did not have the soul of a boss.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Do that to my shoulder hurt from trying to protect them physically from these assaults on their personhood that to me had very little to do with acting. At any rate. So I'd had an encounter with the powers that be.
Yeah.
And I'd been threatened with a court if I broke my contract. And what was his name? Harvey, not Harvey Purr, that's a playwright. Harvey Lacey, that was my husband. Harvey Weinstein, that was a bad guy. One of those Harveys. Harvey. He said to me over lunch at some very fancy place, I was knitting, like a mad thing about my knitting. He said, "Well, would you like to be working for me next year, or would you like to be in court?"
Is this because you were like,
I was saying Meg. I wanted to Meg over Meg. I said, we've laid the groundwork. We've done our thing.
Yeah.
We're just beginning to roll with it. This is going to work. It's going to be great. She's a team
player. She's in. Yeah.
She's my Cagney. Little did we know. Anyway. Oh God, it's a long time ago. And the struggles were real, and the struggles were mostly about trying to make a better product.
Right.
From everybody, I think now. I'm a little kinder.
But at the time, since you were so personally involved, this is you're going to be literally your partner on the show. And it's not just it's hard to be objective about it in that way because it's different for you than for the producers and everybody else involved.
Well, people say often don't take it personal. whatever it is. This is very personal work.
Yeah.
This is my instrument. Here it is sitting in front of you. Size, shape, age, whatever. This is what I have to work with. And my brain and my memories and my guts and all those things. And it is personal work. And it's about, and it doesn't work if someone doesn't pick up on how personal it is to you and feels that same way too. It becomes personal for the person you're telling the story to. And that stuff that's tricky stuff, you know. No wonder half of us go mad and turn into drunks. I
mean, I'll admit, until we started doing this podcast and started looking at Cagney and Lacey, either I didn't know or I just didn't remember that Sharon+gless was Cagney number 3 in the show.
What was it? You didn't need to. That's good. That's very good. She became the one. She said they were the one they wanted in the first place. And she was tied up in a series of her own. We had met a couple times. I went to full courtship because I wanted the job for myself. Come on. I wanted it to work. I didn't want it to fall apart.
Right.
You know. Anyway, then we were fired and then we were hired and then there were prizes and we were fired again. It was a really nice, chunky roller coaster.
I was going to say, for such a successful series from the outside, it had a very tumultuous history. We learned from Barney and from reading about the show and stuff. And so I imagine being in the middle of it, just trying to do your job and being surrounded by whether we're going or not going, who we're going with, who is being handed to us.
Well, and the more difficult assignment was to be some kind of a example or a role model, or, what do we stand for? How do you account for the success of this show? When we go to actors and we stick the microphone in their face and we want them to know stuff that isn't often in their can, and sometimes they're deeply stupid about. And I want to say, go talk to the people you elected. What are you talking to me for? Why do you want my opinion about this? Do I have one? Sure. No, I don't think it's appropriate for you to be asking me about this. Ask me about what I do. At any rate, that was very annoying to me. I didn't, and the part where you're supposed to represent something.
It's at this point that Miss Daly notices the Jimmy Stewart retrospective poster on the wall of my office.
There's Jimmy Stewart right up on the wall. Look, hi, James.
Yes. So I went to USC Film School and organized a retrospective of Jimmy Stewart movies because I wanted to see them.
Yes.
And I got to meet him too at the last. It was really, again, an incredible memory, and he was so kind and gracious that he was
a lovely man.
Yeah.
Did you go around when he did his show and talked about his past and all that stuff?
No, I wasn't out here then, but yeah.
God. It's a strange deal for actors and all performing artists, although we have film and although we have all of that recording devices, you only serve in your own time. Mm-hmm. I could not have served in the 30s, and Betty Davis could not serve now, couldn't get a job. The styles change. I had a very smart friend who said to me once, styles change, but the truth does not. So you can see the truth tellers, in the movies and the theater.
And I think it's one of the, Cagney and Lacey holds up. And I think it's because you guys are truthful in your moments. There's truthful moments.
That's what we were working for.
Yeah. And it comes through.
And there's a whole lot of bullshit too. I mean,
but
No, but the end of the season, we used to get to a point, me and Barney+rosenzweig, and we'd say, okay, so this year we did 22 or 24, whatever. And which ones would you keep? If you would keep 8, you were doing great. If you keep 11, that was a very good season. And it was gone down into around, well, I'm not proud. Then we jumped the shark. Then it gotten silly. Then we were grasping at straws. And I wish we were more then like the English are, to say this story has a finite amount of time to tell.
Yeah, I'm of two minds of that though, because as a television consumer and a lover of television, I'm happy to spend as much time as I possibly can with these characters that I like, these shows that I enjoy. But at the same time, it is nice when the expression about going away before you're missed or before
yes, right. Yes, right.
let them miss you as opposed to want you to go away.
Leave them
basically.
wanting more.
Yes, exactly. I understand that as well. So I'm always of two minds when it comes to that. Because yes, I would love to spend as much time with characters that I enjoy and shows that I enjoy as I possibly can. But when you're doing 22, 24 episodes a season, they're not all going to be, keepers because of the runaway train that is television production. Yeah. So there's just not a lot of time for that. But it's still lovely.
Well, when my daddy started doing series television, they did 39 episodes a year. That was the hiatus was 52 weeks, cut in quarters, 39 episodes, hours.
And he was on an hour show.
And so then I saw it slip for him when he was going out to the coast, and it became 36, and then 34, and then 28. That was a big dip, And now, but it's changed again.
Now it's 6.
And maybe it was 11 was what I was thinking about The Sopranos. 11, how did, all that same money, all that same amount of time and money makes things excellent.
Yeah.
But yes, we had, when Sharon and I did 3 shows together, they showed 2 of them on television. And then Barney begged to have the 3rd one also shown, And my friends thought I was lucky because they were only making 2, of which it's the business. I know far more about this business than I want to. I never wanted to know anything about show business. I wanted to pretend to be somebody else. And so, I just think that's not uncommon impulse. I wanted to disappear into somebody else and show off at the same time. See, that's...
Oh, yeah. Look at me, don't look at me.
It's one of the nice dichotomies. I used to say, the impulse to show off and the willingness to disappear. But in terms of reality television, if I was remotely interested in reality, you think I would have been an actor? No. Let's pretend and have dress up. Let's have fantasy land. Old school.
So that reminds me of an interview that I watched with you where you talked about one of the first things you do is find the voice of the character. And your voice is so amazing, right? But I love that thought that's how you approach.
Well, it's not so much as finding the voice, is hearing her. And the hearing of her doesn't come just out of my brain alone or auditory hallucinations, as we say. It comes from the page. It comes from the written, what's on the page. And I'm, as I said, I'm not a visual. I'm an aural learner. We used to don't talk about that. They just started talking about that with my little girls. What kind of a learner is she? Slow? So yeah, I often, music, the auditory thing, is a stimulus for me more than the visual. Whereas my young husband, George, I used to catch him, standing in doorways, staring into space, and I knew he was directing. I knew he was, seeing it, trying to envision it.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I'm sort of fascinated by actors' different approaches to creating these characters. And Mary Beth is such a subtle character in a lot of ways, much more than Cagney. Cagney is sort of through the door first, I guess.
Yes, right. Well, maybe in cliche, Cagney's a little more available, because she's more showy. Lacey, I just liked her. And I also thought she was doing a struggle that I was involved in myself, but on a being an actress level, not on being a housewife and with a second job at, the local hotel cleaning brooms.
Yes.
I mean, she was trying to do that particular juggling act. I'm not getting to it, of the 80s woman. You can have it all. And that wasn't true. You certainly can't have it all at once. You can have it all very quickly, one after another, if you have an endless supply of energy and good temper. She was throwing herself up against a bunch of walls with her husband and her kids and her work that I thought was worth telling stories about. And then, what do you know? A whole lot of people wanted to hear stories about themselves on TV. What a surprise.
I know. And
they wanted to see themselves reflected.
They wanted to see women being real in their lives.
And everybody else too. It's a crack in the. I'll read the statistics of our union still. How many stories are told about the white male in the society, and we reflect. Some people think television's leads. I'm not so sure. I think we reflect. I think a lot of what we were talking about on Cagney Lacey had been talked about in the world, But here we are again with people, assaulting clinics that take care of women's health, with people marching in the streets saying, "We matter, can you see us?" With people confused about police to have played a policeman. Both my husband and I played policemen in those days. And if you think we didn't go home and discuss and decide to accept that in them days, then you underestimate both of us, because it was not easy to say, "I'm lining up with the pigs." Not only been marching for Vietnam and meaning it, compromises.
Yeah, the end of the Vietnam War was really not that far away from when and all the things that went on, around it was not that far away. So it's totally understandable.
The entertainment industry for peace and justice. The worst. What are those things that NATO's, the one that those things into a word? The EIPJ. Jane Fonda and Don Sutherland and us with carriages in the street, street theater, all that stuff. And I just did street theater again.
Oh, really?
Sort of. Sharon and I introduced a play by Lisa Loomer called Roe v. Wade. That's, here,
yes,
to a bunch of people, to 100 people in a thing saying, "Don't give up the ship." It's disheartening. And yet I know there's progress, but only progress if you insist on it.
Yeah, the fight never stops for a lot of things. You have to keep fighting. So
I just don't. I'm not an idea. My version of fighting, because I'm not very. I don't have a very aggressive spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So my version is storytelling.
Yeah,
and I think human beings need stories. I don't think sometimes I think, I've spent too much time with words. I've wasted my time with too many words. And I'm still looking for the right words. I still call up my friends and say, "You want to hear a poem?" I just, and I know that can be not as useful as deeds, words and deeds.
Well, I think everybody has to contribute what they can at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Everybody can't do everything.
Words are very powerful,
Absolutely.
Which we're seeing the policing of words, and we're seeing you don't get to call yourself what you want to call yourself. And we're seeing, so words are very, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And, it's the First Amendment.
Well, freedom from fear.
Freedom from fear.
Okay, so we're going to take a little break. We'll be back. All right, welcome back. Oh my gosh.
So, do we get up to Cagney and Lacey? What do you want to talk about?
We want to talk about Cagney and Lacey.
More about Cagney and Lacey,
and what your favorite moments were, like what you still hold dear.
I don't. When at the end of the show, they gave us an opportunity to have all of the episodes, the entire series, and it was a choice between Betamax and VHS. Yes, VHS.
Yes.
I didn't understand it, but I did do a little research. I found out Betamax was smaller and better resolution, both visually and audially. So I said, I'll have Betamax. So I haven't seen Cagney and Lacey in 40 years. And not really interested in it. Looking at oneself is a mixed bag. And Sharon will tell you, maybe, or she used to sit down with Monique James, who was her mentor at Universal, and they'd watch dailies, and Monique would say to her, "No, that's good. I like that when you do that. Don't ever do that. Watch out when you do that thing with your don't do that." And talked her through how to look, and it was just foreign to my nature.
Yeah.
I thought for a while I'd look at the shows, and Barney said it was an interesting opportunity to see if you'd made a table that had 4 good legs or 1 leg was short. You could assess the work. But the opportunity to really see yourself when you're making it was very rare. There wasn't any TiVo or look at it afterwards. I remember looking at dailies every once in a while from a scene I was interested in for a while, because we had the whole operation at Lacey Street, which was a old brick factory that they turned into a studio with everything. The first year or so, season or so, we didn't have the sound department, but we had the writers upstairs and we had the cutters downstairs and we had the costume department. It was all kind of a self-contained little factory of our own. We didn't have to report to Universal. And if the powers would be called up and said, "Oh, we hate that scene, you can't do it anymore," you said, "Oh, sorry, we filmed it. Oh, too bad. Oops, shot." And then they were too cheap to. So it was a lovely cocoon in a way out there. But collecting favorite moments, You don't do it. I don't do it, really. I know that I had very good times working with a particular director or on a storyline. When we were being the heroes, and then as the thing went on, there was the victim requirement. People had to be date raped, and people had to have breast cancer, and people had to have, the things that were the victimhood of the female cop was not required from some of our colleagues with penises, if I could say that. But and that was another interesting thing to negotiate. I remember. Trapped in the thing we did called Heat, when the bad guy trapped you in the hot, being a victim. There were good acting opportunities. I liked the quieter ones, but it's painful to me to try and name you episodes. We picked out, did they work or did they don't work? A very smart man named Arthur Lawrence, whom I encountered later as a director, an old fox of the theater. And he said to me, "There's no right and wrong in the theater. Does it work or not? Does it work or it doesn't work?" So I think we worked it mostly. I don't feel that there were times when we really betrayed the side or something. There were a couple of stupid episodes, but they were mostly just relief from, now I've done 20 of these, let's do something silly. We did a lot of laughing together as workers. We had a good tight crew, who knew each other for we lost people, but that they held together mostly.
You had some really, you had for the time, a number of female directors and writers.
We did. We tried consciously to hire female directors and ADs and stuff, and to help on that, front in terms of technology. I
don't know if you remember Karen Arthur.
Of course,
we're going to be talking to her.
Are you?
Yes,
good. She's in New York now, as far as I know. Last time I saw her was in New York.
Yeah, well, I think she'll be zooming in, so I don't know exactly who she is, but
yeah, she was one of our regulars.
So you mentioned you were talking about how you really never really watched the show, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So is that consistent across the work that you've done on film and television, that you haven't gone back and after you finished it, gone back and watched it?
Pretty much so. I mean, we had a couple of movies, a handful of movies that I've done. Some directors have dailies in the olden days, which was kind of another communal activity. Come and have drinks after the thing and watch the day's work. God, it's such weird work, because I prefer the theater where you don't have to look at yourself. When they look at you, and in fact, they're not even allowed to take your picture unless they're doing it on the sneak. It has to live in the memory of you and the person you were telling the story to. So the non-communalness of this last couple of years, which is changing our business of law, of gathering any place and gathering with comfort and ease, and rather than suspicion and nervousness and wondering if going to the movies is going to make you sick. That's something I'm kind of looking at from the margins, because I'm not, but I have done enough work to see how different it is. I did. This guy wants to know about burn notice. I have to tell you, the reason I did it was to keep my pension open. My pension had faded, and I called Sharon. I said, "Sharon, I got to make this much money to do my pension. Get me a job." I mean, this is if you want to know about how it really works, folks, you get to be old and they kick you to the curb. Okay, so what was I going to tell you about? Something though.
Theater and
the recording of an experience so that you can look at it again and again is very different than having it have to last in your memory.
Right.
And you could retrieve what you can. And I understand that, there are kids who are recording their teachers in college class instead of taking notes. taking notes is one kind of recording, but recording the whole thing and to then go and fall asleep over it again. I think it's an excuse for paying attention in many ways, and that makes me sound like an alta caca, which I am. So
I'm probably pretty far down that road too. I mean, as you know, as cell phones have proliferated, when I first was able to take pictures all the time and as many as I wanted, I did that. I'm gotten to the point now where I almost never take pictures when I go places because I want to see an experience and I want to look at what I want to look at and pay attention to what I want to look at because there is something about being in that moment. And that's one of the beauties of theater over film, as much as I love film and television and filmed entertainment.
And it's lovely to see things again. It is. It is
absolutely
wonderful to see great performances and all that stuff. I don't mean to be religious about it.
But I think there have been a number of actors who've talked about how they don't watch themselves. They don't. So you're definitely not alone.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious if that was something consistently over your career that you've mostly done when it came to the finished product, as opposed to dailies, which to me is a little different because you're seeing the work of the day and helping, that may be useful in terms of going forward. I don't know, but
I think I have only like 8% Sunset Boulevard in me.
Just enough. That's just enough.
Yeah. That's not my favorite form of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that.
No, understandable. Sure.
So let's move on to theater because I want to talk about Gypsy and I want to talk about what theater has meant to you over the years, and because you've done a ton of theater.
I've done some, but I also there was this distraction of my husband's career was out here. My career turned out to be about television and a little bit of a way, the movies where I couldn't pass the physical and to be a Marine, which I remember reading something about Demi Moore. Saying that she was a hands-on mom, and she also spent 8 hours a day in the gym. I thought, baby, how do you do that?
How do you do that?
Which 8? All in a row? How many hands? I don't know. I just didn't. It amused me. Anyway, I couldn't figure out that kind of juggling without a lifestyle that I wasn't designed for. Very bad at delegating responsibilities and asking other people to do my shopping. At any rate, so the theater and the movies, I've been very lucky. I've gotten to do some of each, but my yearnings for my dream time, as I said, was the theater, not the movies. Not to be on the silver screen, but to be in, on the Broadway stage. And the music part was fun, and getting up for it was fun, and retraining again, to make the cabarets was fun, and. So I wasn't required to choose to say to do this or this. I was happier being a jack of all trades.
And I think that was, that has changed. It used to be you were doing television, you did television. If you did movies, you did movies.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you did
There was a lot more snootsiness about it until Laurence Olivier sold cameras.
Oh, okay.
Until old Larry got that ad for Polaroid. Yeah, inroads were made on what was the fancy stuff. And, where you earn the monies and where they want you. So, and the theater takes a different kind of energy. I don't know that I could do the first act of Gypsy without falling over, these days. It's just, you age out of that part of it. And the memory fades, and the attrition of old age. But hopefully, I was interested in telling stories about women from the beginning to the end. I didn't like cutting out and leaving only the 15 years between 15 and 30. Yeah. That those were the only ones we looked at.
15 and 30, yeah.
Very few coming of age things for girls.
Yeah.
Very few getting through the middle passage for girls.
Yes.
Very few after I Can't Make You babies for the girls. And very few old wise hags. To add a little bit of the female spirit to the overbalance of male stories about how they figured out the world and how they run the world and what is necessary to run the world. I had a thought the other day about the Bible and the Constitution and all of the things that are rolling around in our society right now, and the great words. And I thought to myself, I wanted to say to the founding fathers, who told you that story? And they'd say, my dad. And I say, well, who told him that story? And they say, oh, my dad. Your dad told you that story. We've all been listening to the dad stories for a long time on the version of what's creative, what's nurturing, how do we get to be better people, and so I thought there was room for the mom stories, particularly the mom, not the girlfriend, and not the rival for the job.
Well, it was such a big part of Lacey, and there's a again, rewatching these, there was a line that struck me from one of the episodes where she constantly questioned whether she was being a good mom, but there was like I thought I was stronger than this. I thought I was a good mother. As a mother and a stepmother and a working person and a thing. I was like, yes, we're constantly asking that question of ourselves.
Yeah, serving all these masters and wondering if you're failing them all. It was a condition and still is a condition of a lot of people. And I know that's not that men don't question themselves or that they don't, blah, blah, blah. But the running of everything, and the recent being instructed that I'm a second-class citizen, officially now, from the highest court in the land, is painful to me. And my daughters and their sons. You see, if you can announce that somebody's a second-class citizen officially again, you could take your next group. There's that, who do they come for next? There's that thing to say your personhood is in question. Your citizenship is in question. Your value to the community is in question. So Lacey had a hard time with that in the 80s, and Daly's having a hard time with that in the 20s.
As are we all.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's, one of the reasons, we sort of have this little saying, like, look back in order to leap forward, and yet we're tripping sideways, like in backwards and forwards. Like, it seems like a bit of a hot mess right now.
Yeah, well, maybe it's always a hot mess. I just... It's the idea that and it applies to the acting game, right? It's the idea that you've arrived someplace and now you're there. And that's it. That's the end of the story. You've got to this platform and then you don't have, and no, it's an ongoing thing. There's the whole ebb and flow and blah, blah, that stuff is happening in our country and happens in the career. So when you get to something, you say, okay, this is it. This is what I do. I live in New York City and I do bad plays. Oh no, this is what I do. I go and sell out in Hollywood and make money and win prizes and get famous, and that's and that's it for no. There's no arriving. And how to be of service. I always wanted this to be a service job. That's how I was brought up. Human beings tell stories to each other about themselves because they need it.
Yeah.
And more importantly than that, for me, was, human beings come to the theater to watch actors because they've all been actors. All of them. Even the starving ones have pretended to be somebody else and to get themselves out of this condition and have played dress up and have, shown off. They've all forgotten. We're the ones who remember how to play dress up and show off and be silly, and they come to get that from us, but there's no arrival at some law. We were so innocent that we thought we would change the laws and we forgot they could be changed back. As a generation, I think, our hippy dippy, against the war and all this stuff. We thought we were the only people that marched on Washington. Ever. We forgot all about them Civil War soldiers who never got their pension. No sense, and history shows us that you have to go out again and again. You
have to keep fighting for your rights. You have to keep fighting.
Constant vigilance.
And fighting is an interesting word, right?
Striving, struggling, questioning, challenging. I like all those. My mama said to me one time, I hate all this stuff on TV. Everything's a fight. You're fighting ring around the collar, and you're fighting the yellow on your floor, and you're fighting you're cold with this medicine, and everything is pitched as a battle. And I thought, That's really interesting. That's a hell of a long time ago. But yeah, the idea that of combat and aggression and struggle, I think we sort of run out of that being useful.
Yeah.
I think that anybody that thinks that war is a solution to anything is wrong.
Yeah.
Period.
Got
to figure something else out.
We got to do it,
guys.
We got to look for different ways. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast is I wanted to celebrate women in all ways and also examine what our choice of language is. Like we sort of question each show that we look at and we go like, okay, is this a feminist show? What is a feminist show? Did they know they were making a feminist show? What does it mean to do that?
Well, mostly I've played women. Girls in my career. I did play an 8-year-old black boy in Moby Dick Rehearsed in Denver, but that was unique. And mostly I've been asked to play women. So if I'm doing it, it's a feminist show. I mean, it's about women. It might be about the woman standing in the background. But that will give you the story on the woman of that story. Everything having to sit in its own category. This is for girls. This is for boys. This is for black people. This is for Asian folks. This is for the bitsing up and categorizing everything. Okay. Here
we go.
I'll tell you my last idea.
Okay.
Independence Day, 4th of July, bombs bursting in air. And I thought I want a new vacation. I want a new holiday. I want a holiday called Interdependence Day. On Interdependence Day, we celebrate everything that's alike about each other. Everything we have in common. No show of military might, no uniforms, no banners, no anthems, no borders, and nothing that smacks of anything that's like a badge or a symbol. Just Interdependence Day. I'd like to see us move towards that instead of towards the disaster of the 21st century, which is tribalism.
Factions.
My opinion.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. I got to read you a poem now. Can I read you a poem?
Yes, let's read poem.
Let me read you a poem.
Tyne Daly is going to read us a poem.
Because I like to say Vistava Zimborska. This is a terrific poem. If I can make it called. Because this is what I'm doing now. What I'm doing now is working with words, and I have been for a while, to try and.
Your entire career, you've been working with words.
Well, I can't memorize them anymore, so I have to read them. But I can still throw the poetry in the room, as we used to say. I'm going to. This will betray me as a theater actor. I'm going to go to the home of Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne. Anybody, raise your hand. Never mind. The greatest acting couple of the early part of the 20th century, and they lived in a place called Genesee Depot. I'm going to do a seminar for actors. They all have to have been in the business for more than 20 years, and I'm going to try and refresh their spirits in terms of and find out what they're up to and how it's been for them for these 2 years of masked.
Yes.
Thing. And the name of my seminar is Renewable Energy.
Excellent. Oh my God. Tyne Daly,
okay.
you have refreshed my spirit today. I just want you to know that.
Life While You Wait by Vistava Zimborska. Life While You Wait. Performance without rehearsal. Body without alterations. Head without premeditation. I know nothing of the role I play. I only know it's mine. I can't exchange it. I have to guess on the spot just what this play is all about. Ill-prepared for the privilege of living, I can barely keep up with the pace that the action demands. I improvise, although I loathe improvisation. I trip at every step over my own ignorance. I can't conceal my hayseed manners. My instincts are for hammy histrionics. Stage fright makes excuses for me, which humiliates me more. Extenuating circumstances strike me as cruel. Words and impulses you can't take back. Stars you'll never get counted. Your character like a raincoat you button on the run. The pitiful results of all this unexpectedness. If I could just rehearse one Wednesday in advance, or repeat a single Thursday that has passed. But here comes Friday with a script I haven't seen. Is it fair, I ask, my voice a little hoarse, since I couldn't even clear my throat off stage? You'd be wrong to think that it's just a slapdash quiz taken in makeshift accommodations. Oh, no. I'm standing on the set, and I see how strong it is. The props are surprisingly precise. The machine rotating the stage has been around even longer. The farthest galaxies have been turned on. Oh, no. There's no question. This must be the premiere. And whatever I do will become forever what I've done.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you so
Oh my
much.
God, thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful.
Szymborska.
Oh, all right. Will you say the name again?
Her name is Vistova.
Okay.
Wistawa. Vistova. Szymborska. Szymborska.
Please tell me you've done audiobooks.
I have not. I failed completely. Oh, this is a funny story. They approached me once to do an audiobook for new mothers, and it was a little book of contemplations, so that you could read about how you. I said, if this new mother has 10 minutes a day for herself, she's doing better. She don't need this book. God bless her. Well, that's been my experience. Them 10 minutes don't go until the kid is 35. Let's be serious. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow.
No, and I we were doing a long distance trip, and I got books for the girls to listen to. We were driving my daughter back from school in Wisconsin, and I got Ruby Dee doing Their Eyes Are Watching God, and I love Ruby Dee. And I worked for her and for Ozzy and stuff, and I got it. The thing made me fall asleep. Driving, and it was like a supper. I can't. Yeah. So I say I listen, but I can't. Very few books on tape move me.
I find it hard to listen to nonfiction audiobooks.
Yeah.
Fiction audiobooks I find easier to listen to. Maybe because it engages my imagination in a different way as opposed to trying to take
Their Eyes Are Watching God. Come on.
Come
on. It's hard to be for... What else? Jim Dale. Do you have Jim Dale in your mind?
Yes.
He did all of the voices for the Harry Potter.
Yes.
Something like 309 voices. I thought, what kind of a thing is that?
Those audiobooks are amazing.
Yeah.
We listen to them with our boys.
But he said he recorded them and managed to remind himself of who everybody was. Sometimes he'd lose a voice. That kind of gift is just amazing to me.
Can I ask you really quick? I know we got to wrap up. The Bread Factory 2-part movie, like such a charm. Like how did that happen? Did you have
fun with that?
I did. I love
Patrick Wang is a lovely genius filmmaker. You should see his film called In the Family. Oh, yummy. And then there's one called The Grief of Others. But Bread Factory was shot in under 30 days with 210 speaking parts. It was a miracle. With dancing and singing, carrying on, and I got to it through my friend, like happens a lot in my business, my friend Brian Murray, gone from us now, but a great actor. And he had done a piece for Patrick in, I'm trying to remember which show, and I think it's the first one, In the Family.
Just lovely. And that was such a brilliant, two movie. You shot both movies at the same time.
We shot them back to back in a breathtaking amount of no time, in a tiny, and Janine Garofalo, funny people, who just came because they were charmed by the material, basically.
Anyway, it was a favorite.
Where did you see it, for God's sake?
I found it streaming.
Okay.
Because that's the great thing about streaming. You
Well,
can
let
find
us know
things
where. Let us know where.
I will when we do our audiography.
Yeah.
I will because I have to look it up again.
I think I have to see it.
A Bread Factory, part 1 and 2. Yeah, it's about a local arts center that these two ladies run together and have forever, and where kids can draw and paint and sculpt and act and sing and carry on. And it's being threatened by a consortium of modern entertainers who are pretty electronic. At any rate.
Okay, so it's 3 questions. You can't name your own shows, but is there an 80s TV ladies-driven TV show that resonated with you. And I can remind you of some to get you going, like Golden Girls or Murphy Brown, China Beach,
Designing
Women, Remington Steele. Or were you too busy being a mom and making TV?
I have never been a regular television watcher. I used to watch my dad, which was kind of interesting because, he'd be on these, and then there he'd be being, Robert E. Lee, or he'd be being Walt Whitman, or he'd be being, in those days when he was always somebody, he played, Give Us Barabbas. He played Barabbas he played a lot of different stuff on a lot of different interesting long fights, and it was very strange to see your dad. I remember my brother Tim, the first time he saw, he was 10 years younger than I, but the first time he saw my dad on TV and my dad was being threatened by a bad guy, he freaked out.
Oh, I'm sure.
He couldn't, Truth and Illusion, he couldn't make the thing. Even Daddy was sitting next to him, and he couldn't make. I watched The Rookies regularly because I was home in the 70s. I haven't owned a television set for about 20 years now. And I don't mean to be graceless about it. And Sharon tells me all the time, there's such great things on TV and you have to see these shows. I think I saw 3 Sopranos.
Is there an actress?
I like those actresses on Designing Women. I thought they were terrific. And Sharon's in love with, what's her face, who's doing her new show? Jane Smart, who's a wonderful actress. And occasionally, it sounds like I sometimes feel I'm an ingrate about this because I do love to go to the theater and I love it when it's good and I love to see the actors afterwards and stuff. But sorry.
That's okay.
Nothing to be sorry about. Nothing to be sorry about.
Who's Alex Trebek? I watch Alex Trebek faithfully and go to sleep afterward. He's gone now. What is that? I thought that would be a great job. I would love that job, but they wouldn't let an old lady do it. But I think I would like it. Trivia. Yeah. Do you know trivia?
Yeah.
Is there an actress out there that you wish you could work with or wish you had worked with?
I've enjoyed the ones I have worked with that are real famous. When I was a kid and came out here, I was leaving New York with my 3-day-old baby. She'd been born while her father came. He was out here earning the money to pay for her. And I was in the airport, and there was this. It wasn't Playboy. It was another kind of men's magazine like that. Less sex and more gentlemen's GQ, possibly GQ. And there was a picture of a woman on the cover, obviously naked, the part we couldn't see, but she had her stuck in a big trash can. And so her legs and her arms and her, were hidden by this corrugated, is that what they're called? Yeah. Galvanized, a huge silver trash can, and her long hair and her stuff and kind of posed. And the headline was, "The California Woman Through at 21." And I was 21. I'd had my first baby. I was just turned 21. And I was going with my baby to California, and I wondered, why am I going to California if I'm already through? And then I would sit and I had my baby and we had our little thing and we were trying to have no money. George was working as a janitor and there'd be these fan magazines and they'd say, and here was the new actress and here was the next new actress and here was this other new actress and I kept saying, not me, no, not me again. But I didn't want to be them. I didn't want to turn into Meryl Streep.
Right.
Meryl Streep had already done that, There's a little card that says, "Be yourself, everybody else is taken." Yes. and I just wanted to be there with, in the mix. But I wasn't envious to be somebody else or to admire somebody else. Not that I haven't had fun in the theater and had people move me and tell me stories. Yeah. But I just, I really don't have anybody that I wanted to be like, or wanted to have their career instead, everybody wanted Angela Lansbury's career, but I
think a lot of people want your career.
Well, they can't have it.
You're very good at
I'm almost dead. And second of all, it's taken, there's no repeats. You can't put your foot in the same river twice. All that stuff is true.
Yeah.
So I loved seeing there being more stories for women. I'll tell you that. I love those. I love seeing those girl cops on LAPD thing and stuff. I mean, there were the cracks were being made. I was aware of that, but I didn't have time to sit down and watch it because I was busy doing it.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Last question. What's a moment that you've had that you felt like, is this scripted? Am I living in a television moment right now? You were on set all the time in television moments, but like one moment where you're like, that was so memorable or so like out of...
That I felt like I was in a movie, you mean? Or
yeah, like a movie or a television moment of drama.
Well, I tell you what my brain thinks of because I'm not quite sure I understand. I remember George was doing The Rookies and was directing and got me a job. I had an in because I was married to the co-star. And we were doing a show. We'd been in school together from the time I was 17 or 18, and we were just babies. And we were doing a scene which he was also in. He was directing, but he was in it. And he came up and stood up next to me, and I said, "Hey, baby, it's you and me in the movies." And we had the best laugh. That I can tell you. There are moments when it's amazing that you're on the stage, or on the stage, you can't let that awareness in too quickly or you'll not know what you say next. At any rate, this work, it's good work. It's, lined up with other things to do for a living. It's not a terrible thing to do.
Thank you so much. Again,
we cannot thank you enough for this.
Has been
it's
fantastic.
something we've been looking forward to, and it's exceeded, I think, our expectations.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Okay. Cheers.
So Tyne Daly challenged us to come up with one word to describe our time now here in America or on Earth.
This first part of the 21st century.
First part, in this time period, the first part of the 21st century. And then we forgot to come back to that, to circle back before she left. So I'm gonna get in touch with her and find out what it was, her word. We think Kevin thinks it's tribalism, which might be right. And now we have to come up with our own. The first word that popped in my head was change.
I think I found my word. Turmoil. Because from the beginning, first we had 9/11, 2001. We're still dealing with ramifications of that insanity. We had the historic election of Barack Obama, followed by the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Obstruction from the right that I don't think any of us have experienced in our lifetimes. Maybe there have been periods in the history of our country where similar things have happened, but this is taken to a whole new level.
Whole new level.
And it's only continued to get worse from there. The fact that we went from Barack Obama, in my mind, one of the best presidents, one of the best men that's ever been president of the United States, to arguably the worst person that has ever been put into that job, the worst kind of person that ever could have or should have. This is not about ideology. This is about
a person.
This person. And that person, because I refuse to say the name.
We're not going to speak that name.
That person continues to not only be an effective stirrer, but that there are still so many people who have been brainwashed into believing and to sustaining the lies and distortions that he created in his time in office.
Yes. He built a cult on hate and vitriol and fear and division.
Yeah.
And continues to work to divide the country.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, of course, that's who was nominated by a faction of people who want to punish. Like, oh yeah, you're not going to have a woman president. We're going to give you the worst of men.
That's exactly what happened. Oh my gosh.
We will take the worst of men over any woman. as a payback. Oh my God, Sharon just broke her paperclip. That's how wild we're getting here. Okay, all right.
Have you come up with your word?
Well, the first word was change, but it wasn't enough, and I think turmoil is indeed. And you also reminded me that the 21st century started 20 years ago. So I'm also going to say opportunity. It's an opportunity for turmoil and crisis, and it's an opportunity for change. And we've seen both of those in the last 20 years, and we'll see, and we know we're not at the end of this. We're not at the end of COVID. We're not at the end of the chaos of the result of the last 6 years in politics, the last 20 years in politics. We are also in the middle of this enormous technology change and speed of information that's unprecedented and that we're not built for, right?
Speed of information and disinformation.
Yes. And it's a crisis, but it is also an opportunity. We are in this, I think the word that I can't come up with right now because my brain isn't working is something that represents both of those.
Well, because you're right. There always is opportunity in chaos and disruption. There's opportunity there. It's just a question of, do you seize that opportunity to make things better? Do you, whether it be something big like the things we've been discussing or even in your life, it's hard to see it sometimes. It's hard to believe that it's there, but it is there. It can be there.
And it's not even so much about the silver lining. It's about when things are breaking apart, it is a moment to rebuild them in a new way and to decide to do things differently. So I think that question, which again is sort of resonating from all of the stuff we talked about today, which is, how did we get here? Right? That's sort of, we're looking back to be like, how do we get here? And then how do we get out of here? I think is one of the other questions. And it's again, very serious conversation in mostly a light podcast, but the undercurrent of everything right now is a struggle to define the new way we are going to be. And because there is opportunity in these crises, because we can recognize things and name them in ways we couldn't. We can recognize that our healthcare system in America is not appropriate to the situation. It needs to be different. We can recognize that our involvement in government has to be more for the people, by the people, and of the people. We can recognize that these things that are breaking down are things that we can rebuild in a new way of looking at things. I don't think anybody is interested in doing the same thing. I'm seeing it in theater. I'm seeing people take power from their own place that is often a disenfranchised place, but they're now saying, I don't care, we're now going to unionize. I don't care, we're now going to demand not only these rights back, but more rights. And even though there's a lot of work to divide us into these factions, there's a lot of people that are saying, no, more people in my history than I remember ever are activated, are engaged, are paying attention. And with that attention comes the opportunity. And I'm seeing really exciting people running for office and really amazing people stepping up and finding their voice in their community in a way that I think is not what I saw happen in the 80s when things were falling apart, and in the 90s when people were sort of ignoring that things had fallen apart. Anyway, but we got into a serious vein because I think I'm still searching for my word, but if I don't, I'm just going to say opportunity, because there's also an opportunity for bad forces, right? Mm-hmm. So it's an opportunity for everybody. And the question is which opportunities are we going to take advantage of, and which opportunities are we going to demand change for good?
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Now it's your turn, 80s TV ladies listeners. How would you answer Tyne Daly's request? What is your word? What one word describes our time now, here in the 21st century so far?
Send us your thoughts and your word to 80stvladies@gmail.com or contact us through our website or on social media. I don't know, Sharon. Turmoil is a pretty good one.
Sadly, yes, I think so.
And now it's time for our audiography for websites. First, I want to let you know that you can go to the official Facebook page for Cagney and Lacey, facebook.com/Cagney and Lacey. There is a Facebook page for Tyne Daly, Tyne Daly online, facebook.com/Tyne Daly online. You can find The Bread Factory, Part 1 and Part 2 at various streaming sites. You can stream it for free using your library card or university login at canopy.com. That's KANOPY.com. And that's for thousands of movies.
You can also rent or buy it on Apple TV.
It was available on Amazon. It's currently only available through Fandor on Amazon right now.
What's Fandor?
I don't know. It's one of those new things. We want to shout out our friends at Rainbow Remix Podcast. South Florida singer, rocker J.D. Danner and podcaster Denise Warner invited us onto their show, which features LGBTQ lifestyle news, music, arts, media, mixology, and so much more. They are delightful, and they just loved our show and reached out to us.
They had us on their podcast to talk about 80s TV ladies, 80s television, and why we started this podcast. Denise and JD are delightful, and we are going to have them on in a future episode to talk more about queer representation in 80s television.
And 70s and 90s. You know, it's slim pickings, I realized, which was a little disheartening, but a very vital part of television history, herstory, and all of us-tory.
Check out Rainbow Remix Podcast. A link will be in our audiography.
All right, so the books that I'm going to call out today are Remembering Cagney and Lacey with Sharon+gless and Tyne Daly by Brian McFadden. And I'm also going to shout out the book that Tyne Daly read to us from. It's called Poems New and Collected, and I'm going to mispronounce this name, Wisława Szymborska. It is the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I'm going to run out and get it right now and then dream of Tyne Daly reading them all to me. And the last book I'm going to shout out today is New Handbook for a Post-Roe America by Robin Marty. It's very helpful. Oh my gosh, thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. Thank you, Michael, Anne, and Kate. Y'all are awesome. If you want to shout out on the show, join our Patreon at patreon.com/80stvladies. You can get all sorts of cool stuff, but you also can just support us and support us making more episodes.
Support at any level is most welcome. And listeners of any kind are most welcome, and we're grateful to you all. Next episode, we have Cagney herself, the incredible Sharon+gless.
I can't wait. Once again, we're just like trifecting.
I'm just thrilled that we have another Sharon on the show. There aren't too many of us out there, it seems.
It was funny during this episode. Tyne Daly kept saying, well, Sharon says this. I was like, when did they have that conversation? And then I realized she was talking about Sharon+gless because they're all friends and stuff.
It was a little confusing for me too, occasionally, even though I knew that she was not talking about me. There was a moment where my brain thought, you know, when she mentioned Sharon, of course, I'm the only Sharon in the room.
Someday we're going to get you and Sharon+gless in the room together.
That'll be very fantastic and probably at times very confusing.
Too many Sharons.
We hope 80s TV Ladies brings you joy and laughter and lots of fabulous new and old shows to watch, all of which will lead us forward toward being amazing ladies of the 21st century.
Like Tyne Daly. I want to be Tyne Daly, but she won't let us because she's Tyne Daly.